Hey, Pretty Girl Club. Welcome back to the Decentering Men series. This is a series where the purpose is to help you take men off the pedestal. I think a lot of people confuse decentering men with devaluing men. In this channel, when I talk about decentering men, I'm literally talking about this chart right here. Okay, so I'm not saying that you're banned from talking to men or that you have to remain celibate or like be lesbian, but I think that it's important for women to stop focusing all of their free time on pursuing a relationship. So that's how you'll know if you're male centered. Like, what do you spend your free time doing? Are you spending your free time watching dating content or watching those videos where they have people calling in complaining about their dating lives or, consuming all of this stuff about how you have to shop at a certain place to attract a man? All of that, like the more time you spend doing that, the more male centered you are on average. Are you spending most of your free time scrolling on dating apps or driving all over the city so you can go to different places where the men are? Are you spending hours getting ready just before you go out of the house because you're hoping to see a man? Are you overspending on beauty stuff because you're hoping to attract a man? All of that will tell you how far along you are on the decentering men spectrum. And by the way, I've talked about this before. I do believe decentering men exists on a spectrum. So it starts off at hypergamy, and then I would say at the farther end would be things like the 4B movement. That would be things like being child-free, not getting married, or just being celibate, the LGBT community, no longer dating men at all. So decentering men is not a monolith. If you think about why so many women watch dating content, it's because deep down inside, everybody's just trying to hit a lick. Women are just trying to upgrade their lifestyles. They think that a man will save them from their financial woes. They think that a man will come in and then suddenly they'll be able to travel and they'll be able to do all these amazing things that they couldn't do without him. So the purpose of my decentering men content is to help the Pretty Girl Club to take back their own social power instead of always putting your power in the hands of a man. Because, a lot of women, that's an ugly girl mindset. They have to be hella male centered. They have to be like a pick me or whatever. They have to be desperate. They've got to be a sugar mama and lower their standards. They have to get pumped and dumped by dozens of ugly, unattractive, broke men. I don't want the Pretty Girl Club to experience that. Leave that to the medium ugly women. Leave that to women in the unambiguous community who are promoting that lifestyle where, everything revolves around chasing a man. Let them do that. Let those guys build their harem with those women. I don't want the Pretty Girl Club to be involved in it. And if you are dating right now, I would say at the very least, one thing you can do to help decenter men is to take a break. You can take 6 months off from dating apps, or you can decide that okay, I just want to focus on myself. So instead of listening to dating content, I'm going to start listening to audiobooks every month. Or instead of going to a singles meetup, I'm going to join a women's club and go with them. Instead of focusing on only traveling with men, I'm going to do my first girls trip, or I'm going to go on a family trip instead. Or if you have a sister or something, maybe you guys can have like a sister trip or just go with your cousins. But the title of this video is going to be that most men waste their youth. So that's another reason that you should take them off the pedestal and just go ahead and stop centering your life around them. Men will do all this talking about how women hit the wall. They say that you don't look as good as you did before. You don't have as many options. And it's like, sir, you hit the wall. Because let's think about this. Most men peaked in college. Most men peaked in high school. When he was young, that's when he looked the best. That's when he actually had muscles. That's when he had a flat stomach. That's when he actually had hair, for God's sakes. That's when he had good skin. He didn't have a saggy turkey neck and a beer belly. He actually had all of his hair, his hairline was intact. And a lot of men are actually the ones who waste their youth away because some of them are dumb enough to believe that how he was treated when he was 23 years old is going to be his same experience at 33 and 43 and 53. And that's not the case. Because now women are waking up, and also a lot of women are hypergamous. And so it's like, okay, the only time that man has access to a lot of women is really when he's young. Because a lot of women haven't learned their own value yet. So that's why you see these arrogant college guys. You see these arrogant frat boys and stuff. They think they're the shit when they're young because they're living in a dorm with thousands of women. They're walking on a campus where they have access to women every single day. And then the student ratio on college campuses, there are usually way more women than men. And so a lot of men feel like they can just build this roster, and they make the mistake of thinking that that's how life will always be. A lot of men suffer from feeling invincible when they're younger. They feel like they're strong, they're healthy, they don't have any kids yet, they don't have any baggage yet. He hasn't fucked up his life that much yet. And so a lot of men, they will actually waste their youth. They won't develop their skills. They won't develop their conflict resolution. They won't develop how to actually process their emotions and stuff. So there are so many skills that they're missing by the time they're in their 30s and 40s. This is also why you come across a lot of guys who they're 40 years old, they've never had a girlfriend. He's never had a serious girlfriend because he thought that he'd be able to just fuck around forever. He thought that women would just chase after him and just sleep with him. He thought that he'd be able to trick women into sleeping with him forever. But then once he hit about 28, 29, a lot of the women his age start to realize, hey, I'm getting scammed here. I'm going to stop sleeping with this guy. So all of his access to kitty cat dried up. So yeah, he used to be that dude back in high school. He used to be that guy back in college. But women have wised up. And so the way that he was perceived in his 20s is not the same as his 30s and 40s. When a man is a teenager, it's okay for him to live with his parents. But now, if the guy is 45 living with his parents, women are starting to throw around words like loser, dusty, bum. So a lot of women's standards get higher as they age, which is why a lot of men, they try to go for teenagers. But even the teenage girls are wising up now. Even teenage women are talking about hypergamy and stuff like that. So they're not falling for it. So most men have wasted their youth and they have peaked when they were in college. You know how they say that women should prioritize marriage from ages 18 to 25? No, that's projection. Men are the ones who regret not prioritizing marriage from ages 18 to 25. And that's why you see more men complaining online about not having wives. And then they say there's hoe-flation and all this stuff. But who participated in hoe culture? Who is the one that's funding the OF girls? Who are the ones liking the pictures on IG? Who are the ones that are following these female streamers and watching these Twitch streamers where all they do is talk about women? And these podcasters where their podcast would be irrelevant if they didn't fill it with a table full of women. So men are actually the ones who have a tendency to waste their youth. A lot of them will go out and blow their money when they're in their 20s and 30s. They go and fuck up their credit. They go and spend all their money on women. They spend all their money on bottles at the club and purchasing cars that they can't afford, all so they can impress you, a member of the pretty girl club. And then when they're in their 30s, 40s, and 50s, then suddenly they become angry that no woman wants to marry them. And it's like, well, sir, you should have prioritized marriage when you had the chance. When you were in college, I'm sure there was a girl at your college who would have married you. I'm sure there was somebody in your high school who had a crush on you. There was probably somebody in your 20s that really liked you, but then you thought you could be a player. You thought you could be a little playboy. You thought you could have a roster. And a lot of men, they make the classic mistake of getting greedy. So what happens is they'll get access to one good woman, and then they start feeling themselves, and they start thinking, oh, who else can I get then? If I can get her, she's pretty, she's smart, she's classy. Okay, how many other girls can I get like her? So it's almost as if they're viewing women as kind of like these collector's items. So they make the classic mistake of not locking down that woman when they have access to her. They make the mistake of not treating her correctly. And then, he thinks that other women like her will come around. But a lot of men miss once-in-a-lifetime opportunities. And that's why you see that most self-unalivings are by men. Most of the time, it's men that are self-deleting. Most of the time, it's men that are resorting to violence against women. Or, they're resorting to violence against other men. That's men who are the most obsessed with that. They tend to get the most angry when it comes to politics and stuff like that. They expect the government to save them. They get the most upset about the elections and stuff like that. Well, it's because that man has wasted every other opportunity in his life. This is the average experience of most men. Because think about it. When little boys are growing up in elementary school, they're not taught how to share with other kids. And, a lot of them have been socialized playing these video games where the whole object of the game is to destroy other people. They play video games like Halo. They play these first person shooter games where the entire fun is by it's by destroying others or colonizing other countries. That's literally the premise of a lot of these games is colonization, domination, and subjugation of others. They're playing games like Grand Theft Auto where it's literally glorifying committing crimes. And they watch these movies like Superman and Captain America. A lot of men are obsessed with these Marvel movies and comic books and anime. So they kind of live vicariously through these fictional characters. And a lot of men get into their 30s and 40s and they wonder, wait a minute, why didn't my life turn out how I thought it would? And I think that's a part of why you should decenter men, is because most men themselves don't even have any role models. If you ask this guy who his role models are, he's going to say fucking Goku and Captain America. Like, these men don't have role models, or they will try to rely on religious beliefs as a way to dominate and subjugate women. They'll try to use religious beliefs to justify their entitlement. And then they'll say things like, oh, well, the Bible says that man and women should be married and you have to be fruitful and multiply, so you have to have my kids. So they try to recruit as many women as possible into these religions in hopes of building their own harem. I mean, you guys have heard the stories about the pastors and stuff where, they sleep with the members of the church. So most men have already peaked, or they've already squandered away the things that would have made them attractive in the first place. And a lot of men have had the tendency to take things for granted. They took their first love for granted. They took their first girlfriend for granted. A lot of them take their own mothers for granted. They will live off of their mothers. They'll mooch off their moms, mooch off their sisters. When a family member passes away, the men don't usually plan the funerals. Usually all of that is pushed onto the woman. Usually the care of elderly parents is pushed onto the female children and not the male children. So a lot of men are not even socialized to be caregivers or to, care about others in general. A lot of men are living in survival mode. And most of them kind of spend their lives regretting the fact that they never took advantage of their lives when they were at their peak. And you know this because you'll see men talking in bars about how they could have gone pro and how, in high school, he was the captain of the football team. You'll hear them talking about how their 20s, that was the greatest time of their life, or high school was the greatest time of their life. It's always something in the past. Has anyone noticed this? A lot of men are actually very nostalgic, and part of that is because a lot of them don't have an actual future to look forward to. I know, you're going to try to convince me that every man you talk to is a multi-billionaire. Every man you talk to is just the king of the world and he's fucking royalty. I know you're going to try to convince me in the comment section that every man you come across is high value. But we all know that that's not the case. First of all, that's not even how capitalism works. So you're telling me that the entire hypergamy sector, all of those millions upon millions of women that watch that content, all of them are talking to millionaires? That doesn't even align with the wealth statistics in America. All you have to do is go on the US Census, just go and look up all of the financial stats in this country, and you'll see that the economy doesn't even support the average man becoming wealthy. And don't even get me started on uneducated men. He's got no degree, he's got no skills, he's got no trade, and even if he does, the average person who has a bachelor's degree is not a millionaire. The average person who is a mechanic is also not a millionaire. So most men, their past is kind of like the best time of their life because a lot of them have only thrived on having no responsibilities. That's the time that most men thrive the most, is when they live with their mothers, is when they live in the college dorm room, they're living off their scholarships. But then suddenly when it's time for him to compete with other men in the marketplace, suddenly when it's time for him to start a business, now he suddenly wants a wife to go 50-50. He suddenly wants a girlfriend to go 50-50. Wow, how convenient. And it's like they literally expose themselves every single time. So this is another reason why I tell you guys in the Pretty Girl Club to not center your life around them, because you might be dating a guy, you might think that he's coming in your life to be a giver, but I mean, come on, let's be realistic here. How many men have been socialized to be givers? No, he's probably not coming in your life to just give you vacations and give you money and just give you everything you've ever wanted. That's not how most men think of dating. Most men are thinking of dating in the same way that women are thinking of dating, which is hypergamy. Men are also hypergamous. They say that only women are. No, men also would love to date a girl who's a millionaire or a girl who's an heiress or she's a billionaire. She's inheriting money from her parents. I've even heard men with no college degree say that they only date women who have their bachelor's. Okay, that's a form of hypergamy. He's educationally hypergamous. He wants a woman with more education than him. He wants a woman with more beauty than him. That's hypergamous in terms of looks. Sometimes he wants a woman who's lighter than him, who's whiter than him. He's hypergamous in terms of whiteness. Or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe he's hypergamous in terms of blackness. He wants someone blacker than him so he can birth athletes. Yes, I've actually heard non-black men say that out of their mouths, that they would like to get with someone as dark or as black as possible. You know, they go after tall black women in particular. I've literally heard non-black men say that they like tall black women, or that they want to date or marry or have kids with tall black women so that they can birth little biracial babies. And then, their kids will be tall and athletic. And then they can basically pimp out their child to become an NFL player and extract the money for themselves. So if that's not a woman being a mule, I don't know what is. So there's no such thing as somebody dating you and not expecting to get anything out of it. Anytime a man even talks to you, he wants something from you. It could be your body. It could be your genetics. That's part of why men worship beauty. They worship beauty. They worship natural beauty. Of course, he wants you to be his baby mama. He wants your genetics. He wants his children to have your genetics. So, of course, he's going to get mad when you say that you're child-free because he wanted to take your genetics. He wanted to birth your genetics into the next generation. He wanted his genetics to be mixed with yours because, again, it's a form of hypergamy. Some people actually do believe in racial, like racial hypergamy. Maybe they're going after somebody who's multiracial, or they feel like multiracial children are kind of like genetically superior to monoracial black children. We've all come across people like that. So there's no such thing as a man who will come into your life without wanting to take anything. So this is why I think it's very important for women to not center their entire lives around a man. Because if anything, that man tends to be centering himself. He's been socialized to center himself. He's been socialized to dominate and subjugate weaker people. So that includes women. And that's why the majority of DV cases are man against woman. So he's been psychologically programmed to dominate you. So why would I center my life around somebody whose entire purpose or, kind of their subconscious desire is to dominate me somehow? He wants access to my genetics. He wants access to my body. He wants access to my emotional labor. For those of you who are kind of similar to me, maybe you're a psychology nerd like me. Maybe you're very emotionally attuned. You enjoy studying how society works. You're a smart girl. A lot of men, they want access to your intelligence. You're kind of like his walking chat GPT. You're his walking AI. He wants access to your intelligence. He wants access to your networking connections. So for men to say that they're not hypergamous, it's laughable. It's absolutely laughable. And the way that they expose themselves, all you have to do is ask a man with a girlfriend. Just ask him, hey, what made you want to date Sarah? Why are you with her? Why is she your girlfriend? And he's going to tell you something that has to do with him using her. Oh, I'm with her because she's good in bed. Okay. So you like her sex. You're just using her for her body. Oh, I'm with her because she introduced me to a better lifestyle. She's very classy. She's elegant. Anytime somebody calls you classy or elegant, what they're really talking about is your socioeconomic status. They're talking about your economic background. Do you know how many men have been obsessed with me simply because I have a suburban background or because of the way that I speak? There are men out there who love women who quote unquote talk white or act white. Why? Well, it's because he's socially hypergamous. So that's why you shouldn't center your life around a man, because a lot of times men in general tend to use women to social climb, just like how women are using men to social climb. So it's the same thing. If I'm dating and I'm social climbing via dating, why would I suddenly assume that he's not doing the same thing? That doesn't make any sense. But most men have wasted their youth. They have wasted their opportunities. A lot of them, they flunked out of college or flunked out of high school, or maybe they didn't stick to a career path. He was indecisive. So he ruined the first decade of his adult life, his 20s. He ruined it by being indecisive. He fucked up his entire 20s, and now he wants you to be the fix-it woman in his 30s. Suddenly he wants to latch on and get married. Notice how a lot of men, they want to latch on and jump into a marriage when they can't do something. A lot of men are seeking after women because he needs help with something. Ask him. If you don't believe me, ask the guy that you're dating right now. Ask him, why do you want a girlfriend? Why do you want to get married? And I guarantee you, he needs help with something. He needs help buying a house. He needs help moving to a new country. Some men, they want to immigrate to the US, or, they need help retiring. They don't have the money to retire. If you don't believe me, go and watch Kevin Samuel's old content. That was their whole entire talking point. Their whole talking point was, oh, women are going to suffer and be in poverty because they don't have a man. And it's like, no, you are going to suffer and be in poverty because you don't have a man. Women in general, we don't suffer as much in society for being poor. Like, you can be poor as a woman, you could be ratchet, you could be ghetto, and still get celebrated in our society as a woman. As a man, you're looked down on a lot more for being poor. So the whole poverty versus wealth thing, well, men in general tend to care more about that because for them, their status mostly does come from things like money. For women, you can use other stuff like your beauty or whatever, your body, your sexuality. So men are the ones who tend to be the most concerned about, oh, I don't have the money to retire. So it's like, yeah, of course he wants to hurry up and try to lock you down because you're smart, you have money. You have resources. You're good at finances. I've actually been around men where they fetishize certain careers. That's a common thing as well. So it's like, okay, he squandered his youth. He didn't take care of his body when he was young. And so now that he's older and he has completely fucked up his entire body, now suddenly he likes dating nurses. He spent his entire 20s, 30s, and 40s calling nurses hoes. But now suddenly when he's 65 and walking with a cane, oh, he would love to date a nurse. He would love to date a medical assistant or a caregiver. He would love to be with a doctor now. Another reason why women should not center their entire life around a man is because they will waste their youth, they don't take care of their health, and then if you marry that man, you will have to deal with the consequences of his lack of health care. I mean, there are men out there who haven't even been to the dentist in 10 years. Also, a lot of men, they wasted their youth, and that's why they're so fascinated with young women. It's like, okay, you wasted your youth, so now you want to take away mine. And that's why you see a lot of old men going for these young women. Why? It's because the young woman makes him feel young again. It makes him feel relevant again. It reminds him of the part of his life that he squandered. He was a loser when he was 28. He was a loser when he was 25. So in his mind, getting a woman who is around the same age as he was when he was a loser, that makes him feel like he won because he's like, oh, look, I'm 45 and I'm still able to attract the type of woman that I could have attracted when I was younger. Or he has this feeling where it's like, oh, I'm able to attract her. She would have been out of my league if we were the same age. If she would have met me when I was 28, she wouldn't have liked me. That's why they're going for the younger women. Also, I just want to point out that a lot of men don't think about their future. A lot of men are not very future oriented, and a lot of them suck at delayed gratification, which is why most of them have a corn problem. They need that instant gratification. They need that microwave processed food. So a lot of them have wasted their youth. They try to go back and fix it in their 30s, or they want the woman to go 50-50 so she can help him pay off his debt from his 20s. She's helping him pay off his student loans, or she's helping him pay off his mortgage. And that's another thing too. Even men who own houses and cars and businesses, those men will still want to marry a woman, and then they want the woman to come and work for that business for free. Or they want her to come and kind of save the business. Have you ever noticed that a lot of businessmen, they like women who are accountants? They like dating women who are lawyers. Okay, well, he needs help getting out of legal trouble, or he wants to have a lawyer in his back pocket so that when he gets sued for his shady business, now he's got a free lawyer on his side. So there's no such thing as men just coming into these relationships just wanting to give everything. No, they want to take. That's why they say, what do you bring to the table? What he's saying is, what can I take from you? What are you here to give me? So that's another reason to not center your life or your self-esteem around them. Let the other women be his mule. Let the ugly women do that shit. Let them be his slave and be on his roster and his harem, and let him pump and dump them. Let him impregnate and leave them. I don't want it to be you, women of the Pretty Girl Club. And have you ever noticed a lot of men only like you when you're gone, or they love the women that they don't have access to? I think Justin Bieber is a phenomenal example of this. He just popped up in my head. He loves everybody but Haley. He is completely rude to her, disrespects her all the time, but anytime there's any other woman, he's nice to that woman. He compliments that woman. He'll say how beautiful that woman is. He'll kiss that woman on stage. Justin Bieber is constantly paying attention to women who really couldn't give two fucks about him. So that's what a lot of men do, though. That's what most men do. They pay the most attention and admire women the most who don't give two Fs about them. So that's the OF girls. That's the IG models. That's the pop stars, Tyla and Ice Spice and Aaliyah, all these crushes that they have. Some of them are even deceased. So it's like this man literally has more admiration and respect for a woman who is deceased than he does for his own spouse. Let that sink in. So that's another reason that you should not center your life around them so much. So if you have an ex right now that you're crying over, if there's some man and you're so mad that he ghosted you or something, or you're mad because he didn't call you back, there's no need to really be mad, because in reality, a lot of men admire women the most when they don't have access to them. They'll be over here still fiending over their ex-girlfriend from high school. They'll be over here still stalking women on Instagram and Facebook from college and not paying attention to the woman right next to them. I've even seen men where they will be right next to their girlfriends and then they'll be fawning over a woman in a movie. They'll be like, oh, she's so hot. Oh, she's so beautiful. Oh, she's gorgeous. Oh, yeah, what's that other movie she was in? Yeah, back in 1905. Her grandma was also an actress. And oh, yeah, isn't she related to so-and-so? And isn't her ex this football player? It's like, okay, these men are out here pedestalizing and admiring and fiending over women that they don't have access to. So while you're over here centering that man, he is centering Tyla. He's centering Aaliyah. He's centering some celebrity. He's centering an OF girl. He's centering the girls on Pornhub. And also, in terms of having the whole long lost love, like the one that got away, that ties into my talking point as well. Okay, he wasted his youth. When he was younger, he had access to the quote unquote dream girl or whatever, and then he messed it up. So he wasted his youth, and then he wants a cleanup woman. He wants the fix-it woman. He messed it up with his first wife. That was his real, the woman he really wanted, or so he thought. He thought he could take her for granted. He wasted his youth mistreating his first wife, and so then she left him. Now he's going to be somebody else's problem, and you think he's going to be my problem now? So I'm supposed to get this other woman's leftovers, and I'm supposed to be happy and celebrating that, and I'm supposed to be excited? And have you ever noticed, too, that, let's say a guy has an ex-wife or baby mama, ex-girlfriends, etc. It's always her fault. And by the way, watch out for the men who say, oh, my ex-girlfriend cheated on me. 90% of the time, he cheated on her first, and she just cheated back, and he's not telling you the full story. I mean, we all know that most men are notorious for lying. They're notorious for not telling you the full story. They're notorious for rewriting history. I mean, look at men as a whole. I'm not even just talking about your boyfriend or whatever, but just look at men as a whole. They're notorious for literally rewriting history books, literally fabricating things in the media on a large scale. So why is it that suddenly I'm supposed to believe that little Johnny, who I have a crush on, suddenly he's just the most perfectly honest man and everything he says is just the truth and everything he says is so perfect. He's just a perfect little angel. But no, most men have wasted their youth. And, that time in his life when he looked the best, the time in his life when he had the most options, the most money, and the least responsibility, he didn't take advantage of that. He wasn't able to secure a relationship. They say that women can't keep a man. No, he couldn't keep a woman. He still couldn't keep a woman, even with his youth, even with his little muscles, even with his little college degree or his little football, high school status or whatever. he wasn't able to take advantage of that. Most men are actually pretty bad at social climbing. Only the top of the top men are good at social climbing, and the main way that they social climb is via domination, subjugation, and colonization. Oh, and of course, violence as well. And then for the men who didn't have that, like let's say he was a loser in his 20s, maybe he was a loser in his 30s. That's where a lot of the red pill guys come from. These are men who were medium ugly or, they were rejected a lot when they were younger. So then by the time they finally do have a glow up, now they want to get revenge on all these random women. Or maybe they want to get revenge on beautiful women in particular, like most red pill guys. A lot of red pill guys, they hate beautiful women. And then they'll say things like, oh, well, she's not that pretty. She's just a 6. But then they tell their friends, like, don't date women who are too pretty because, like, their egos are going to be out of control. But then those same men, they literally are feeding their egos and trying to humble the prettiest women. So, a lot of times when you have men who wasted their youth being losers, those same guys, they just want to terrorize women once they get older. They want their revenge. They feel like, I was rejected by all the pretty girls, so now I finally have some privilege. I finally have some status and wealth. Now I'm going to just disrespect women, just like how they used to disrespect me. Meanwhile, he's literally punishing you for something that another woman did to him. He's punishing you for another woman being mean to him in the 8th grade. So that's another reason why, even if I am single, I don't get mad about being single because I've decentered men. I don't feel like I'm missing out on so much because I'm not centering my life around a guy. Like, look at how a lot of guys act. He was a loser in his 20s and his 30s. So now when he's in his 40s and he gets some power, of course he's going to abuse that power. And that's why you see a lot of men who are in arrested development or they're kind of like living this bachelor lifestyle. He's in his 50s wanting to live like he's in his 20s. Yeah, because in his 20s he was a loser. His life was shit. He didn't have anything going for himself. His entire life, he spent 4 decades being a loser. This is his first time having any relevance in society is in his 40s and 50s. So that's why you see a lot of middle-aged men also doing that same thing where they want to live like a bachelor again. They want to live like how they wish they could have lived when they were in their 20s. And then they're also chasing after women in their 20s. And by the way, if you're watching this and you are young in your 20s, I want you to be as conceited as possible, be extremely demanding. I want you to be like disgustingly arrogant as much as possible and have as high standards as possible. Make your standards as high as possible. Be as spoiled as possible. Because a lot of men, especially those types of men, they're vulnerable to younger women. That's who they pedestalize. So if you are very young and you're doing age gap dating, you can use that to your advantage. That is a source of power because men don't realize that they're actually giving their power away by pedestalizing certain types of women. And I've also noticed that a lot of men have that fear of dying alone because he wasted his youth. He wasted all those decades mistreating people, taking people for granted, not contacting his sister, his mother, his children, etc. So that's why a lot of men fear dying alone. It all ties back to him wasting the time that he had. For whatever reason, I've just noticed a lot of men on average tend to be pretty terrible with time management. And I'm not talking about just what he does in a day. I'm talking about how he plans to live his entire life. And I've actually heard a lot of men say talking points like, oh, well, I didn't even know that I'd make it to 50. I didn't know that I'd still be alive. I didn't know. And it's like, okay, so they're not forward thinking anyway. And this also is a part of why they're future fakers. Because they don't actually think about their future. They just speak in hypotheticals. A lot of them don't plan for their futures because a lot of men don't really have anything to look forward to. And that goes back to them being bad at building communities and being bad at simply interacting with other humans and sharing and, practicing integrity and stuff like that. But yeah, most of them wasted their youth. That's why when they get old, they're scared of dying alone. It's because they know that there's actually a very high chance that nobody will be there for them as they get older. Because think about it, men have been socialized to believe that they have no value in general. A lot of men have extremely low self-esteem. They don't believe that they have any value as human beings. They think that their value is in what they can contribute to society. And I'm talking about contributing to the machine, like contributing to capitalism somehow, amassing status, subjugating other people and kind of dominating other people, exploiting other people's labor. So a lot of men, they have low self-esteem. They feel like they have no value, and so they end up treating women as if women have no value, or they become very women-centered and they just chase after women the rest of their lives, but then they end up terrorizing those women because they don't know how to keep the good things that they have. And then when they get old, they realize, oh wait, I just fucked up my entire youth. There was that one black guy, I forgot his name, but he's an actor. I'll try to put a screenshot of him up if I can, but he's really old. He's like 70 something. And then he was basically admitting that he wasted his youth. He wasted all of his like relationships and stuff. Like basically he mistreated everybody around him. Friends, family members, girlfriends, wives, etc. And then he was yelling and shouting that, it's not fair. Basically, he didn't know any better. So now here he is in his 70s, all alone and isolated once again, just like how he was as a teenager. All because he wasted his youth. But what do you ladies think? Let me know in the comment section, and I'll talk to you next time. Stay pretty, ladies.